Testing. There we go.
Tom, I got a care though, right? But tonight we're about to have a conversation. Me and Miguel has had several conversations about suicide prevention and the way that it looks. And I always feel that it needs to be a lot better, right? The military that I grew up in was a lot harder. However, our leaders were a lot more, I don't know what the word to say. Back in the day? No, they used to love us. They used to love us. I don't know, the ones that I grew up with. Experience might be. This, and I'm super excited about this conversation tonight because it's going to make a difference. Let's give our panel a round of applause. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Suicide Prevention and Community Approach panel. My name is Miguel Sierra. I am the Suicide Prevention Program Coordinator for Fort Meade, Maryland. And I would like for my panelists here to introduce themselves.
Hi, good evening. My name is Millie Frank, or Milagros Frank, but I say Millie. I was a suicide prevention program manager at Fort Belvoir, 15 years. I am a mental health advocate. I was a mental health specialist or NCO in the Army. So I have a very in-depth background with it. Now I work at headquarters Department of the Army. I do measurability assessments and focus evaluations on all of the Army prevention programs.
I'm Dr. Ariel Jordan. I have a private practice in Frederick, Maryland, and treat pretty much any complex trauma. And I've written a couple books on trauma and how to heal after grieving some of the hardest losses of your life. So for me, it was personal before it was professional. And I think it's so important to continue that conversation.
Hello, everyone. Brian Sanders. I just retired last year after 26 years of service, United States Army. I know that's right. Retired as a command sergeant major. I was on Fort Meade, so I met this young fella down here at the end. He was a great support to all my soldiers and everybody on Fort Meade, and that's the continuous relationship that we have right now. I mean, hey, being a leader in the Army is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. Something that I still do. I'm trying to let it go, but I just can't. Right? I'm a contractor now working back on Fort Meade in the counterintelligence command, and I'm seeing things with a different lens now, right? And I don't know. I'm 50-50 every day on how I feel about today's leaders and what we're doing with our people. And we'll talk a little bit more about that this evening. But thanks for your time. Thanks for being here, and let's get into it.
All right. I gotta say this real quick. So Millie right here, she's family, right? But for my friends that are in the building, the people that know me, that I've been doing this work for about 17 years now, this young lady here, man, is the one that got me started in this field, man. I was a young for Belvoir. She came to our clinic, a behavioral health tech, and she asked for help with a suicide prevention training. Like the way she set me up for failure, because I had no idea. The slides would be up, and it was at the command of about 300 people. And I'm standing there reading slides. I've never seen the slides before. It was the worst training of my life, but I discovered my passion that day. So I just want to say to everybody, thank you for giving my life professional purpose. You know what I mean? All right. With that being said, one of the issues that I've noticed, working in suicide prevention is that specifically in the Army, right? I can speak Army, but other branches chime in if it's a little bit different, I'm gonna assume it's not, is that when it comes to suicide prevention, when it comes to behavioral health issues, when it comes to mental health care, we kind of push it off to behavioral health, like to the clinic, right? And there are plenty of things that we can do as a community. There are plenty of things that we can take action on as community leaders, as fathers, as wives, as neighbors, coaches, whatever, to assist with the issue that, to be honest, in my opinion, help just as much, right, as the professional help. So tonight, we want to dive into a conversation from different perspectives, right? You can hear you see my panel very, very diverse. And I would like for them to now explain a little bit about how they see suicide prevention versus intervention. Yeah, that's the question. It said like it was more, but it wasn't. 2 minutes, maybe, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, so find me, Dave. One with the H-Town hat, that's my hubby, for almost 33 years.
Yeah.
Thank you for loving me through my crazy. I think most of us can relate having, trauma and being broken in spaces and places where people dismiss you when it comes to mental health. What I will say, prevention versus intervention. In my experience, as a mental health specialist, in the field of mental health background in psychology, I came across at Belvoir, and Sergeant Major won't let me lie, because she was our Sergeant Major. At Fort Belvoir, we had a lot of commands that would call me after the fact. Okay, I was the suicide prevention program manager for the installation. I'm the subject matter expert, and hence I'm also a suicide survivor. So who better than the blueprint? But they would come after the suicide. After the suicide is an intervention. Prevention, keyword, pre, before the fact, post, after, right? Intervention, in between. So the way I see it for leadership, it's kind of like leadership courses, right? You have your current state, you have your desired end state, and then you have your problem frame and operation. It's kind of the same concept. Leaders need to be mindful when you start having problems and you're noticing it, it's bringing it before it gets. Army just got to change the reactive mode. We cannot continue to work in a reactive mentality. It has to be proactive.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. Appreciate you. So I gotta do it. Ariel.
So for me, working at Walter Reed, that was my job. When I started there, it was to assess for suicide and then get them down to the ER if I felt like there was a concern. And so as a clinician, you are kind of seeing it after the fact as well, that it started. So prevention is more of, okay, I'm starting to think different. I'm starting to not have a solution for this pain. And that's okay, and that's when we start the conversation. So I think the intervention starts right there. Once you know that things aren't quite like they used to be, that's when we start the intervention. We start to talk about it and get the community involved, get help involved, whatever they need. So for me, that is prevention, is when we start the intervention right there.
So yeah, I'm old school, right? I'm old South. I had the praying mama, the praying grandmama, all that stuff, right? So I'm definitely a blessed individual. I came into the military with that. We talked about that tough love. The old school leaders who were tough, they were like my fathers, my mothers, and they really instilled a lot into me. So when I got into the positions of leadership, I always need prevention. I'm always trying to keep you from touching that hot stove, right? I don't want you to find out about what's on the other side of what happens if you do this thing. So, my leadership style and even how I am now as I advise others, prevent, like always, do risk assessments, check on your people, look them in the eyes, just do all those little bit of things. I know it may be nerve-wracking, sound like a nerve-wracking parent or whatever, like, just constant violin or whatever, but you got to keep doing it. you know, me and Miguel talked about it the other day in the office about, same thing, Millie just mentioned it, about how leaders, it's never a problem until it's a problem. Like, it's too late, y'all failed. And don't get me wrong, if somebody set out to do something, they're going to do it, right? That's just life and it happens, it's unfortunate. But when you start peeling things back, you start doing forensics and looking at everything, it's like, what did you do? And when you find out they didn't do anything, right? Where was the prevention at? It's just the daily things that we do. And I don't want to, keep going on and on about that, but prevention to me is key. Every day there's always a method, there's always a means of preventative measures as we lead people.
Thank you. And I want to add to that. When I think of prevention, right, I think of, we talk about protective factors like in suicide. These are things that can keep a person from feeling suicidal, or things that will reel a person in rather quickly, right, from a suicidal ideation. And when you reframe that, it sounds to me like we're talking about quality of life, purpose, joy, right? Things that, make a person's life wholesome and complete and give it purpose. And when I think of it from that perspective, right, we're not talking anymore about just behavioral health, which is a part of our protective factor, right? Having the ability and access to care and the ability to go ask for help when needed, right? That's part of being resilient. But also, what are some of the things that bring us joy, right? Some of the things like, watching a movie or going out to dinner, traveling, buying a new outfit. I like buying shoes when I can afford them, you know what I'm saying? That can become a risk factor, my shoe addiction. But if you have the means, right? Like I just got some, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I got some Kobe's and my first Kobe, I'm very happy. Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. Somebody. But I think, when we start looking at it from that perspective, we can start taking some ownership back. There are things that we can do. When we look at the biggest protective factor against suicide, there was a study done in 2010, I forgot who did it, but in the study, they pointed out that loneliness is one of the biggest indicators of somebody feeling suicidal. It's not the only indicator, right? It's a complex issue, but there's always this feeling of I'm shouldering all these problems on my own. I have nobody to turn to, so I want to die now. That makes sense to everybody? Yeah. Now, if loneliness is one of the most consistent and constant factors for somebody feeling suicidal, what's the opposite of loneliness? Connectedness, right? Now, without any training whatsoever, I'm pretty sure you guys will say it, right? Everybody in here can affect somebody feeling lonely. Yes or no? Yes. We have that power. Already we can become you don't gotta have words, you don't gotta have training, you don't gotta have anything other than genuine presence and concern for that person. You know what I mean? And I think when we start looking at prevention, that's what it is. The problem is that we confuse prevention and intervention, right? We call it suicide prevention, but most of the time we start the conversation at the crisis. Somebody's sad, somebody's down, somebody's thinking about suicide. Well, let's prevent it now. We're intervening now. So it makes it very hard to have conversations about prevention when we're really talking about intervention. Make sense? All right. Oh, also I want to say this, right? This is very much a conversation, not a lecture or anything like that. So if you guys have any questions throughout or any comments throughout, we welcome it. And I already talked to my panelists about it, so just raise your hand and speak loud. Go ahead, sir. So the question is, how do you detect someone feeling suicidal before they get to that point? Ariel, you want to touch on that?
I think having open conversation, like we've created this community conversation right now so that we can just talk. So that's awesome. There are certain signs that like we might notice. Now, not all the time, but a lot of times, like somebody getting rid of their belongings or something like that. Like even if somebody, let's say they look fine, they feel fine, but they're like selling all their stuff, doesn't really go along with them looking fine and being fine. So it's okay to like ask the question. I think people are afraid to ask directly, have you been thinking about committing suicide? Because they think that that will make them commit suicide, which you're not going to make them. If anything, even if they lie and say no, somebody asked about that. So just asking directly sometimes, if you're even just a little bit curious, I think is one of the things that we're scared to do, but even maybe practice, hey, are you thinking about committing suicide, and actually say, and not being afraid of that. Sometimes that can change the trajectory of somebody thinking about it behind closed doors. So there's certain signs of sadness and things like that, but then for other people, it's more complex, like they're not showing up to work, or they're always late now, things like that. They're subtle, but just that kind gesture of, hey, is everything going all right for you, is enough.
So we'll get to you in a second. I'm gonna say, I definitely agree with what Ariel just said, because sometimes we miss the mark. There are times that people will be euphoric and be suicidal. And when I mean euphoric is, there's a joy, there's a peace, because they have already made their mind up what they're gonna do, okay? So sometimes this is where, you know, we get those symptoms or behaviors crossed. But if you pay attention long enough, right? I always say connectedness is important, because if you know this individual, you'll notice those little subtle changes. Whereas somebody that doesn't see them, you know, somebody at work may not see them all the time, right? But someone that sees them on a day-to-day basis and sees the deterioration, you're gonna pick up on some of those cues. So when I did mental health, I had somebody that said, I wish I could go to sleep and not wake up. So my question to the audience, is that a suicidal ideation? Yeah. Think about it. If you go to sleep and don't wake up, where are you going? So there are risk factors, there are protective factors. Some of the symptoms, some of the things that you're gonna see is the conversations shift. Sometimes they get dark. They might start saying something, right, that doesn't connect with who they are as a person. A person who is a extrovert, very talkative like myself, because he keeps me on time. So does my husband.
I'm trying, but as y'all can see, she's
I can
trying to keep going.
But someone who's an extrovert, who is a talkative person, what do you think would be one of the behaviors that would change in a person who is talkative? They get silent. And then the introvert, what does the introvert do? What's the change of behavior in the introvert? This person is meticulous, they're very to themselves, reserved. What behavior do you think they would display? Total opposite. They're gonna be all in your face. You'd be like, okay. So yes, you're not gonna always know what the mark is, right? But if you go to things like this, have those conversations, get connected, I promise you, the mark will get lower and lower, because you'll start picking up on things.
And you know, I think I wanna kind of connect your statement to your question, sir. Be intrusive, and I think you mentioned this a little bit, so I made a Brian, Brian. We don't have to be intrusive to get to know someone, but it might feel like so, right? When someone comes to your shop, wherever you work at, or when you look at your neighbor, or even with your children or your family members, asking questions about something they enjoy doing, something they like. In fact, I want to do this. I want to do an example right now. So one of my protective factors is I get a haircut every Friday at 5 p.m. That's one of my protective factors. Like, I don't play about that. I would have canceled this freaking engagement if it would have interfered with my appointment. It's that serious for me, right? Now, based on what I just told you, what are some things that you can ask me to show me that you are interested in my protective factor?
Why do you do it every Friday?
Why do I go every Friday? It used to be Thursdays, right? But you know, as a Black man in America, I like to get ready for the weekend. Like, I'm conditioned. It's backwards, right? Because, you know, I'm 47 now, and it's like, I should get haircuts on like Sundays or Monday morning, right? Because I got all these meetings and stuff, right? But no, I still, and I don't go anywhere in the weekends, but I still, it's that mentality thing. Plus the barbershop pops a little more on Fridays and Mondays, so. But that's why I do it. What's another question you can ask? It's Thursday, bro. You gotta point it out that I'm looking crazy right now. Man, it's a risk factor. What's another question? Give me one more question.
Where do you go to?
Right, okay, thank you. So I go to my man Juan, one of my best friends. I met him about 8 years ago when I retired from the Army, came here from Hawaii. And I found him after my old barber. I used to be stationed at Fort Belvoir here before Hawaii. And I don't know what happened to my barber, but he started messing up. Like the lineup wasn't right. So I did a little hashtag search and I found my barber, man, and we've been rocking ever since. He started up in one shop and now he owns 3 barbershops of his own. So it's important for me to go support him every Friday. Now, based on those 3 little questions, what do you know about me right now? I don't do anything on the weekends, so my weekends are free. What else? I like to look fresh as a black man in America. What else? I like the community in the barbershop, so I'm very much an extrovert, right? Like you picking up on things about me just through a casual conversation. And if the conversation keeps going, you'll know that my mom, in another, part of the story, you'll hear about my mother, being my hero. And you hear about, me having to drive from Fort Meade to Woodbridge every day because I'm working for me, right? So you learn things about me, right? On a curiosity basis. We're not talking about, I don't need help. I don't need money for a haircut. I'm not looking rugged. You know what I'm saying? But you are showing interest in me. And what that should do in me is spark an interest in, I'm not going to assume Scott, but I'm going to assume that you don't go to the barbershop every weekend, get a haircut every 2 weeks, right? But I will ask that, what are some of the things that interest you? What are some of the things that are important for you? What does self-care look like for you? And now we're engaging in a conversation, right? That eventually you show accountability for each other. And if we start a conversation there, right? When it comes time for me to ask you, hey man, how you doing? And you're not doing okay, if we don't have that connection already, it's gonna be very hard for me to be honest with you in that moment, let alone if you ask me, am I thinking of killing myself? Am I making sense with this? It's genuine connection, genuine interest in each other, which is something that we've lost, the art of conversation over time. Somebody you wanna add in? Oh, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I can speak for self realistically when I talk about this because I myself went through suicide ideations. I myself lost my cousin during suicide when I was in the military.
Sorry to hear that, bro.
We was in the same unit. What I recognize is even when you do have a loving connection with a person, try to stop them, like I said, sometimes you can't. But what I've noticed is sometimes it's about the toxic leadership, not really caring. Because when I was going through what I was going through, I was an extrovert at that time, and I became an introvert because no matter how much I was speaking about, hey, my cousin just killed himself, I myself don't want to do that per se, but I don't know how to help myself. So I'm talking about it in a passive aggressive manner, but no one was taking it serious until it was almost too late. So my question is I see the dilemma is like right now we got Pentagon, right?
That's a great one. I mean, I definitely love that question. So I've spent majority of my career, out of 26 years, I spent 80% of it in special operations, right? JSOC, SOCOM, special forces group, all that stuff, right? So I have a very unconventional mindset. Like I mentioned before, how I was raised, Old South, praying grandma, all that stuff, right? You take that, combine it with an unconventional environment that teaches me and everybody that's like me to think outside of the box. There's not a doctrine out there that the military has, right, that can tell me how to lead. Nah, I'm doing more than that, right? Because if I've been in these tip of the spear organizations where we win by any means, nothing is impossible, it sets a tone, right? And so I'm kind of building it up, right? So like right now, as a contractor, even though I've been retired for a year, I see opportunities. And you mentioned middle, like the middle, people don't understand about the middle. The middle is a great place to be, right? Because you see sometimes the ones that have the power really have no power. They don't make no changes. They don't. It's just a bunch of yes men and women that's here, the postal children, right? But it's the people in the middle that get it done. It's the people at the lowest level that get it done. And I've noticed, and I've had the experience, and I don't want to make it about me, but I do want to share this, right? Because you know, you're young, so I'm the old guy now, right? You know, OG, right? Oh, triple OG at that.
Definitely triple, you up there now. We up there.
We have an opportunity at that lowest level, right? We had you know, you hear E4 is in here, right? Army E4, is anybody been specialist before? You see about the E4 Mafia, right? Right? So our first class Mafia is something I created when I was at one of my units. And I'm telling you right now, we ran that organization. It's like 20 E7s. I mean, we ran it. You know what I'm saying? I reflect back to that when I look at, you know, my old stuff. I'm like, man, you know what? I miss those days, right? Because that's when things were simple. But we didn't think it back, right? Right now, I didn't really realize how much power and influence we had over those young soldiers. They loved us, right? And it reminded me of how it was small open source artists back in the day. We loved them because they were like our fathers and our mothers, our big brothers and sisters. So now, because of all that experience, right? And that's why I try to run from it. When I was retired, I went straight to DC trying to get away from the Army stuff. I didn't want to be a soldier anymore. But then I realized I got my ass handed to me in DC. It was like I went back to Fort Meade and I got back into the environment. And I'm saying right now, I felt like, you know what, I needed to be here. I feel like young soldiers and civilians need, not me, but what I have to offer. My experience. I had suicide ideation before. This man helped save my life, right? You know, with a few other people in the mix. But what I found right now, as a young soldier still coming to me on a regular basis, and at first it was a little nerve-wracking because I just want to be Brian. I don't want to be Sergeant Major anymore, but I had to like think for a second, be thankful because people are coming to you. There's an opportunity. So I say all that to say, what can happen at the lowest level and the middle level is we have to take those opportunities and build, create our own thing. I don't need any policy or any strategic leader to tell me how to run business. I got all of us, and this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do lunch, we're gonna do Bible study, we're gonna do PT together, we're gonna do whatever. We got our chat group, we're gonna joke, we're gonna laugh, we're gonna share memes. The Army or the military, Navy, whatever doesn't say to do that, that's what we do. We create our own rules, right? You know, one of my old leaders told me before that I'm too protective of my people. I said, well, if I'm a leader, what the hell am I supposed to be? Right? You're too influential. Is that a problem? If I'm doing the right things and I'm keeping your soldiers alive, our soldiers alive, I'm keeping this organization moving in the right direction, what is wrong with that? And that helped me to stay rebellious in that mode. And if that makes me wrong, so be it, I'll be wrong every day. Right? And so that's what I keep pushing and I keep stressing, and the message I want to leave with everybody, you know, we still got time, but before we leave here tonight is build your own thing. Don't let anybody set the rules for how we take care of people. We do whatever we have to do by any means, and we keep encouraging each other, inspiring one another, loving each other, all those things. Sorry to make that long-winded, but yeah, that hit home for me. Right.
Hold on, that was definitely a long-winded, but it was good stuff, it was good stuff. Go ahead, Eric.
So I was just gonna add, knowing some resources like 988. 988 is the mental health number that's like 911. So if people know that, and let's say they don't want to talk to you about it because you might think differently about me or you might worry about me, and I don't want you worried about it. But I'll call 988 or you can text it now as well. And so maybe you don't know, but because you asked about me, you're concerned about me, I'll go to 988 because it's not a burden to anybody I know. There's trained professionals. And then if you hit 988+1, that's people who are trained in military culture. So knowing that and spreading that, because they might not tell you. And also, if they do tell you, I'm a big fan of a safety plan. Who are you gonna call? Who do you have in your circle? And that's something any of us can do. You do not have to be a therapist to do a safety plan. But just asking that question. Hey, so, you know, you've been struggling a lot lately. I'm just wondering, do you have somebody you can call in the middle of the night if you're struggling? If not, call me. You know, and you can extend that if you have the capacity to do that, but if not, 988 every time.
You know, there's power in that. There's power in asking someone, you know, are you thinking of killing yourself, and them being vulnerable enough to tell you that they are, you know, there is a certain level of protection that you bring. You become a protective factor for that person because, you know, and mind you, people are gonna do what they're gonna do, like you mentioned earlier. But a lot of times, man, I know, I've dealt with depression my entire adult life. You know what I'm saying? And whenever suicidal thoughts pick in my head, one of the things that brings me back rather quickly is the thought of how it will impact not only my children, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people in my life, you know what I'm saying, that were gonna be left thinking about what could I have done better. You know what I mean? So even when you don't necessarily are there physically for that person, the way people show up for you, the way you show up for people, becomes a protective factor for them. Am I making sense with this? Because I want to make sure you guys understand that you have power already just by showing up in spaces in a genuine manner. I don't know what you guys do for a living, whether you are a businessman, whether you are a coach, whether you are whatever you are, if you apply some humanity to what you do for a living, you can become a difference maker in your area. Am I making sense with that? All right, cool. You have another question? Go ahead.
Last question. So, understand we all best. Right? But my question is, can we find a way where we can start implementing that in an everyday source to our NCOs and to our non-commissioned officers on a more check-in base? Because, like you said, instead of it being a days too late kind of ordeal, now we're doing it more on site because we notice the little differences of a person smiling instead of, you know, being goofy down there. You know what I'm saying?
Your question is, how do we implement it on an everyday basis?
Correct, to the soldiers now and to
Okay.
people that we love. You know what I'm saying? How can we take the different studies that you guys are doing to implement a safety plan
Okay.
or a reactive plan, so when a soldier sees anything happen amongst their peers, that they're more concerned instead of pushing it to the side because we're taught to push it to the side and not deal with our emotions.
Yeah, yes, compartmentalize it. Really?
Excuse me. So, great question. Definitely, what I would, say is that we as a group of people have to stop thinking of check the box. I'm doing training to check the box. I have a yearly requirement and I'm meeting the requirement and that is it. Because I'm prior Army. I still live Army position. And I taught the ASCAR escort, train the trainers. I train trainers on how to train. I'm also applied the assist, applied suicide intervention skills master training. I am a certified suicide prevention program manager. I train people till my face has turned blue. Sometimes what happens is people get conditioned to listen to the same thing over and over. And if it's not applicable, then it's like, why should I care? What, and not for nothing, but leadership, because I read leadership at higher echelons, it's the so what? What's the bottom line up front? Okay? So I hear what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from. But the realism piece of that is that we're talking about right now in the times that we're in, budget constraints and lack of empathy. And this is not just leadership, this is people as a whole. I mean, everybody is friends on Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. We'll put them in a room like this and they can't even conversate. Oh, I must have.
Sean,
Okay.
Sean, and then you, go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say, being kind in general, like us as a whole, just being kind. You just never know what you're gonna say. It changes the trajectory of someone's day. That's all.
Also, remember how you feel right now about your leadership right now, and get that rank. And when you get that rank, do different, do better. Make sense?
I never felt differently because I had toxic leadership and I had great leadership. I'm still alive today because of the great.
My brother, man, good stuff, man. Glad you're here with us. Sean?
The question was, can we do something? Yes, we can. We will do something.
Yes, we will do something.
We-
Sean be talking to me like I'm his patient. Hey, no. So Sean, you're talking about from a strategic level. You know what I mean? And we're definitely doing the work on that, right? To change some systemic issues that are spread across the military, not just the Army. All right? I also like to empower people with things that they can actually do, right, in the here and now, while we, try to mitigate and navigate Congress and what, I appreciate you taking me with you to actually impact change on a systemic level. But in the meantime, do what you can, right? I think when I became my E6 in the Army, man, that was my favorite rank because I knew I had influence over the young soldiers. I was definitely one of those NCOs that didn't have all the answers, but my soldiers knew I cared enough about them to go find it with them. Not send them to get it, but let's go figure it out. And that paid off dividends, right? That paid off in great amounts. I've been out 10 years now, they still call me, thank me, and stuff like that. So it's a good feeling. But focus on what you can control. Because if you look at the really big picture, like if you look at a national picture right now, for example, it can get very frustrating. But you can impact your circle. You can impact your communities, your families, your friend circles, 100%.
I just want to clarify really quick and then we'll come to you guys, but please make no mistake. There's always opportunities for change. What I'm stating is from logistical pieces, because anyone has the power and choice to make a change. You don't have to wait for the middleman, for the senior. You can be the change. You understand? So the catapult can come from you. In the NCO rank, because I was an NCO, there's certain things that we are conditioned. Mission first. I know we talk about readiness, but mission is the priority. So a lot of times, I don't have time when I was an NCO to just pause.
Yeah.
I was focused on the mission. I was focused on making it happen because I had to respond to my command sergeant major. What was I gonna tell sergeant major? Oh, I had to give my specialist a hug. At the time.
Inappropriate, actually.
It's inappropriate.
What's going on? What
I
happened?
would get charged. But now we're trying to push, that empathetic leader to show that you can have humor and you can lead with empathy and you can still get the mission accomplished. But here's the thing that if nothing else that hear from us, what I will say to everybody here is the day that you stop seeing people is the day that you need to check your pulse.
I don't have a question. I'm a firm believer of doing something. So my name is Melinda. I'm a proud Coast Guard veteran. Super proud as my other
You
coaches
say Coast
here.
Guard?
Yeah.
Respect. I'm trying to make sure everybody calm down.
And a little bit about me as well. Unfortunately, I'm also Coast Guard. My brother-in-law was Staff Sergeant Leroy Alexander, part of 7th Group, and he was killed in action when my sister was 5 months pregnant. And we are celebrating our 20 years of losing him, but we have my niece and nephew. As I was a caregiver, because I left my job to be my sister's military, I came across this amazing group called CAMO, which is the Center for American Military Music Opportunities. I came involved because at that time, they got my sister, they were stationed in Fort Bragg. So my sister became the commander of Army Entertainment when it used to be at Fort Belvoir and it's part of Soldier Show. Sometimes when you're in a group like this, you can't talk. I feel that music can really transcend. And when you listen to the lyrics or we compose like a songwriting workshop or something like that. And also faith has brought me through. But it's so true because it's like a club that you never wanted to be in, right? When you meet other Gold Star family members. But something like last Saturday, Fort Lee, it's renaming Fort Lee again.
we did the Run for the Fallen. And they allowed us, Gold Star families, to do the first lap. And all of those kids that, sorry, I'm a coach. They stood up and saluted and clapped for my family and the other Gold Star family. It was like a homecoming we never had. But it's also like, you gotta be there for those kids that didn't have the parents, because they go through, the idea. Thank you.
Real sorry for your loss. Kudos to you for stepping in and assisting those children and growing up, feeling loved and supported, man, because I know that's a life sentence, right? For them, losing a parent to suicide.
Oh, no.
Oh, it was Carrie, yeah, my fault. All right, now you're good. Still, man, still. Any other questions?
In relation to the system, it's hard to kind of create systems, like paperwork and all that that's involved. So I was wondering if there is a way to point to systems that are not in the government while you're in the government, that can kind of fill in that gap. If you have, I'm not military, my nephew is, my grandfather was, I don't know all the proper terms, right? But if you're like your supervisor or your commanding officer isn't someone that is friendly or has a lot of empathy, is there a way maybe you as a person can say, oh, well, I know Dr. Ariel, I know some, and they provide the service. Is there a way to incorporate outside resources? Veterans going to work? Yeah.
The vet center, a lot of the vet centers, they don't document like the VA does. A lot of times people are worried like what you're gonna do in your note. And I know that was a big concern when I worked at the military hospital, because they don't want to lose their career just because they're struggling with something that happened during their career. So even people who like maybe got in trouble and had legal issues, they don't want to work with the real, because if I tell you, we're going to document it, and they're going to subpoena the person. So places like the vet center, they don't have to document the same way. So people they don't know that a lot of times. So I try to educate people that way, because that might make somebody feel comfortable. Like, okay, if I go here, they're just gonna like notate to pick up where we left off, not turn it into anybody that is gonna get me in trouble or end my career. So places like vet centers, I think are excellent for that kind of thing, like outside of the government, but still connected enough that it's a veteran center. Hello,
What happened to your mic?
I have it, Miguel.
Hold on 1 second. You want to?
Yeah, so, to answer both, right, going back to the original question, what you're saying, that's what I was talking about earlier about being unconventional. There's always a way. I mean, I probably was wrong if I didn't talk to legal first before I made a lot of moves, but, having a resource to having networks, I highly encourage that, right? Because I know somebody that knows somebody. And if I got people that need help, whether it's a financial issue, whether it's, spiritual, whatever, like, we're going to find a way. Right? I got my hands smacked a lot by leadership because it wasn't something that was on the base. So we got to do what we got to do to keep somebody successful, alive, all those good things. And as long as we're not breaking the rules and breaking the law, so be it. So there is a way. And I think, like I mentioned, I think unconventional has to be the key word in that. What do we do to make it happen no matter what? Because the reality is, like we all know, I don't know if it's still the same way, but the last couple of years when I was in command, the crisis was we didn't have enough behavioral health specialists throughout DOD. So we had to find a way.
It's still the same. Yeah. We still don't have enough behavioral health. We also don't have enough mental health providers within the military. When I was at Fort Belvoir, I had a soldier call me crying because his soldier, he took him to Fort Myer, and radar clinic said they couldn't see him. He was actively suicidal. He's like, "Miss Millie, you trained me. What do I do?" Yeah.
They said what?
Yeah. And so I said, bring him to Belvoir. Bring him to Belvoir, and we'll walk it through. Okay. So we got him seen.
We got seen in the ER and behavioral health at Belvoir, was able to assess, and mitigate the situation. What I will say is that one of the experiences I kept having at Belvoir was I kept having soldiers call me to say, it's really, told me to go get help. I go get help and they don't have appointments for 30 to 60 days.
Now, as a former behavioral health tech, I do want to say, this is known because this is one of the main reasons why your work and you guys agree is important. Now, I'm going to assume that none of you guys work in behavioral health. None of you guys are, you might be, but for the sake of my argument, none of you guys work in behavioral health. We are in a culture right now that promotes go to health, you need help, go to behavioral health, right? So the system is overloaded. The reality is that the supply and demand is not catching up, and it exhausts a system that it'll take a few years, right, to correct. I don't have the power to fix that, but I do have the power to see it with you guys and start taking some of that load. A lot of those appointments are being filled by people that don't need it, right? If I come to you with a problem that I'm feeling suicidal, and you listen to my problem, not just say that I'm suicidal, and I tell you that I'm suicidal because I'm 3 months behind my rent, right? Because I can't pay my rent and now I can't manage my money. A therapist will be nice, but you know what I need? A financial advisor, an AER loan. That's what I need, right? So instead of going to behavioral health right away, listen to the people, identify the real problem, listen to understand, identify the problem, and see if there's a need to go to behavioral health or not. A lot of times it's not. I don't know what's happening in the military in particular is that commanders hear about somebody being depressed or looking down or whatever it is, same to behavioral health as a CYA. Do your freaking job, man. Like, just take care of the soldiers. You know what I'm saying? All right. Thank you.
All right, I just want to switch up the tempo a little bit. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, so I'm gonna just put that out there. Right.
Okay.
We don't talk enough about women that, unfortunately. And while we're having this discussion, we're not actually having it in frame of, okay, are we talking to a specific type of veteran that we are marketed to that looks a certain way? Or is believed to be, like, I don't know how many times somebody would ask me at the VA, oh, are you here to support your father or your uncle or your brother? And I'm like, no, I'm here for my own employment. You know, and then we go through a whole thing as to which branch of service I served in. All right. Now, I'm gonna definitely not. Yeah, they do say Air Force or Navy, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're tough, so you must be in the Army." I'm like, "Nah." That's within the rank, right? The question is, have you, like, have you looked to some of the issues of your female soldiers and said, okay, I can pick something up? And then you as a clinician, you probably encountered many women who were in the military, who currently serve, and, you know, suicide ideation among us was kind of different. And so the question is, are we cognizant? Are we really paying attention? Because we can have these discussions all day, but half the time, most of us that serve in uniform that are of my chromosome are like, we are here to support, but we're often left out of the conversation.
It's a good gun. Okay.
Good stuff.
All right, there we go.
All right.
So, that great question, right? You know, so before I got into special operations, I had a lot of female leaders on Fort Bragg, right? I'm a Fort Bragg soldier, parachute, all that good stuff. But I had raised by strong women, came into the Army, had strong women leadership, right? So for me, once again, I'm fortunate again, I had that. So I've always considered women, and I've had a good balance of strong women in my formations as well. Also married to a retired command sergeant major, right? same complexion as you, right? Very tough, but a little bit about me real quick, right? I'm gonna make this real quick. So at the Pentagon, I changed some history for the Army, right? I was able to do some things for women of color, women in general, but primarily women of color, because that's what the change really affected. Appearance in women, the same thing that the Army has just reversed as a, right? Ain't that crazy, right? But that's another day, right? We can talk about that later. We ain't gonna bring the devil up in here, right? So yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to make some changes for the military, but a big piece of that was psychology, right? And a lot of people didn't think about, well, what does this have to do with psychology? And I don't want to take it too deep, but yes, to answer that, I took it there, right? Dermatologist, psychologist, because I understood what it takes to make a soldier tick, what it takes to make a service member tick in general, because it does get ignored. So just to answer a little bit of your question, because I know I don't want to take too much time or take the thunder from Mariel over here because she's talking fast about me using her microphone. Yeah, absolutely. I have to. But you know, once again, I was groomed a little bit different. I can't speak for the rest of the Army because I've had female soldiers that come to me and bring those same kind of issues to me because let's be honest, it's a male-dominated enterprise, right? And sometimes women get forgotten about, and it's unfortunate. And we do need to change the stigma of that.
You got a question in the back?
So
Let me say part two.
I want to answer. Sorry, and also can you repeat? Because I want to make sure I get the actual question. Will you ask me again?
As a clinician,
Mhm.
what do you see differently with women veterans or women service members?
Make sure I am. Yes, and I think so. I'm an Army vet as well, so I have. Oh, okay.
See what I did?
But I have been to the VA, and they've done the same thing to me. Like, and I'm also younger, so they'll be like, "Oh, who are you here for?" And I'm like, "Me," and they're dismissive. Well, wow, you have all this pain, and you're, young. You shouldn't have, but I do it. And so we have this dismissal sometimes, and also with women, sometimes they don't want to have that fight. So they want to go to like a VA or something because they don't want to do that. And also with women, what I've noticed, because I've done a lot of free therapy groups just to see who will come. And it's mostly men that come to my therapy groups. So I'm like, where are the women? Because I know we need help too. And I don't know, I still haven't figured out why there's not more women that come. So sometimes we'll do like a women's group and just like separate to see if they feel more comfortable. The signs are different though. Like sometimes women don't necessarily register that they're a veteran in their own body. So if they're not claiming the veteran status, then they don't get the veteran benefits and they don't get the help that they would at like a vet center. So I think it's just continuing those conversations that there is help out there. And I mean, for all of my veteran sisters, I try to say, hey, listen, this actually could be better. If you're willing to try something, here's some resources for you. But a lot of times they don't take them. So I don't know exactly how to fix that. But for me, I'm always gonna have that conversation and extend that hand and say, hey, I'm here if you need something.
Are there differences in suicide ideation? It's gonna
I think that just in general, we're just tough. And what I encounter with Black women more than any other race is that I guess that toughness that I have to be tough and that this is just normal. So they don't really realize that there's something wrong. This is just how it's been. And so sometimes it's the conversation of, well, or maybe like a scale, like how often are you depressed, and getting them to even realize that there may be something wrong because this is just in life. So it's kind of like normalized, I think, a little bit more. Or if you're a caregiver, that's just how it is. So I can't take care of myself because I have all these other things to take care of. And since I have to do all of that, then it doesn't matter how I feel because I gotta do this. So telling them that they matter as well as caregiving, that they caregive best when they take care of themselves is really important. So I think those are the things to like look out for if they're a woman of color, they have typically a harder experience. If they're a caregiver, then typically they have this mentality that my needs don't matter or that I come last, when really they need to come first so that they can do their best work.
Amen.
Hey, how's it going, Dave? We have, one lady, so I gotta keep the ship going in one direction. We got like 5 questions. So I wanna make sure, right, yeah.
I wanted to give you some feedback to, coming from, also another female veteran, Army veteran, and I was a non-commissioned officer. Even though I was part of mental health, I did firsthand, working in the clinic, see how dismissive women of color are, okay? I love my sisters, in combat boots because, I consider myself Afro-Latina, I'm Puerto Rican, Dominican. If you don't know, then I'm sorry for you. We as close as it's gonna be tomorrow. But what I will say is that from my own personal experience, when I was struggling with mental health in the Army, I was dismissed a lot. When I would go to the clinic, it was, it was like, what's wrong? Like, as if there was something wrong to say that there was something wrong. Like, oh, you're looking too deep into it. Oh, she's just being angry. And, she's just angry. There's something wrong with her. And so when you get that constantly conditioned into your brain, you start to believe it. Maybe there is something wrong with me. Why would I go to somebody who obviously telling me something's wrong and they can't fix it? So what I will say too is that people, it's not just in the military culture. I live by Harris Teeter. I parked in the veterans spot before I got my handicap. And this guy was looking at me, he's like, that's for veterans. And I looked at him and I said, how do you know I don't have a DD 214? And then he just his wife elbowed him. Yeah, I threw that shade. I said, you want to get salty? I could be petting the belt today. So when I turned around, I said, yeah, we've only been in the military 75 years. And oh, by the way, I haven't carried rucksacks heavier than your white people. On a pause. I think that we have to get better with women as far as health overall, mental health, but also our physical health. Right now in the community, we have the highest numbers of breast cancer. I am a breast cancer survivor last year. So we need to be better.
We got about 8 minutes, and we got like 5 questions. So if we can keep it one question.
So I know you have a lot of questions, but for the sake of we got to you guys can come and come up and have respect. I do respect my else time. So yeah, only because I'm almost at the clock, so we gotta start wrapping up, all right? So we be staying live with YouTube. What's up, YouTube? So the last thing I want to have my opinion is, we talk a lot about what protective factor, what suicide prevention looks like, and like I said earlier, it's about finding joy in life, having a sense of purpose, and self-care, right? And I want to send you guys home to think about what are some of the things that actually impact your life, that bring you joy, that give you purpose. And now what I want my panelists to share some of the things that they have, so you get an example of what you should be thinking about. So Millie, what are some of the things in your life that bring you joy and give you purpose?
So what brings me joy is my faith. I am very grounded in my faith, and that's what is my foundation. That's what keeps me going forward. It keeps me moving. Other things that bring me purpose is my husband. He has been the best. My children, I also have grandchildren. We have 3 beautiful grandchildren. So now is the extended piece of purpose has now extended across through legacy. And what I do for self-care is, sometimes I just shut things down in the sense I watch Netflix, I might binge watch something, and that's just to kind of shut things off in my brain. Sometimes we just have to put our phones down and just smell the flowers. We really do. But self-care for me is that getting my nails done, eyelashes. I know my husband's pocket is like, oh, geez. So,
So you enjoy, you do like purpose and self-care.
So what brings me joy? I love to travel. And because I'm a therapist, my brain kind of always operates like that in the background. So when I travel, I like to talk to people. This sounds weird coming out loud, but I like to talk to people about grief. Like, how do they grieve? Because cultures are so different that it fascinates me how we have this shared connected pain. And I guess that connects it to my purpose because for me, in 2014, my daughter passed away and she had a congenital heart disease that doesn't have a cure. And then my dad passed away 3 months later, and then I got a divorce. So I got real familiar with what grief looks like. And then I became a clinician later. So I think grief became very close to my heart. And so when life gut punches you over and over and over again, all at once, all that army training goes out the window. There is no like guide for how to get through something like that. And so I wanted to learn. And when I learned, I studied psychology to figure out why are we not talking about how to get better when these things happen? And I learned the term post-traumatic growth. And I feel like that's my whole business now about how we grow through the things that bring us pain. And I think it's so important to know, like, when we fall and we scrape our knee, we know that our knee is gonna heal. We're gonna get a scar or scab or whatever, and then it's gonna be okay. We don't think that our brains can do that, but they can. And so for me, it was pouring into the learning of how to do this. And then the purpose and joy for me is to bring that to other people and be an example of when the worst things happen to you, how do you continue to live and find joy and, you know, smile and laugh again? So I love being that example for some people.
Respect.
Yeah, so mine is family, friends, fitness, and music, right? I'm pretty simple. I'm always busy, so I don't really get a lot of time for myself, but those are the things I enjoy, right? I'm always in the gym, you know, and one thing about my family, my friends, I'm gonna tell you right now, they don't care about my time or anything. They are selfish, right? So, but that's what's keeping me alive though, honestly, right? Like, they make sure I can't hide from them, I can't run from them, I can't have a day or two to myself. They are always on me. And once again, a lot of people just don't have that. So I'm thankful for it. I can complain about it all the time, but I enjoy them, I do, and they make sure I can't stay down for too long. If I'm having a bad moment, it's like, I really just want to have a bad moment. Like, can I just have one? Everybody else has one. Can I have one? They will let me have that. So yeah, so for me, that's the things that bring me joy.
Respect. And same for me, with the family, I think for a lot of us, you know, family is a protective factor, healthy family. I also like to go to the gym and I play basketball, right? As much as it hurts, I play basketball. I like to be in community, right? So I used to, when I had time, I used to come in the weekends and DJ at BGA because I know the man. And I miss those days, man. I wish I could do it again, but, you know, I'm working. But, you know, that gives my life purpose, right? Sitting here with you guys and having this conversation gives my life purpose. Knowing that I'm a father that's teaching young men how to be, you know, good husbands, good brothers, good community members, good leaders, that gives me purpose, right? And I leave it at that. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for being here. Before I leave, I brought you back a little something. I don't know if you guys watch the podcast like me and Danielle had the BGA podcast a few months ago, but we discussed Wilson from the movie Castaway. Everybody familiar? I know somebody here has never watched the movie, but if you haven't talked to the person next to you, but they'll know. But Wilson is a good reflection of what happens when you just show up for somebody else. Wilson didn't say a word to that man for 4 years, but Wilson helped keep him alive just by being there, right? You can be somebody Wilson, right? So I would like for you guys, you know, come up at some point and get a little Wilson girl from you You can whip these little stripes going, you can toss it around. But let me have you the power that you have, in supporting each other. Thank you, guys.
Hey, real quick, we just got one question for the panel. We want to make sure we got it online. So it says, how do you help those people to cope with people they've loved, lost their lives by committing suicide? So you want to understand how to help someone, or how to help if you have someone that's lost someone.
So, so I'll give definitely run it down, so I'll do it quick. I'm not a professional, but, by any means when it comes to the health aspect, when it's psychology or psychiatry. But my biggest recommendation is to don't be alone. Like, find a network, find people you trust, friends, family, whatever you got, whether it's coworkers. Because even at my job, I can see where a lot of soldiers, they really relish in those 8 hours they're at work, right? Because I feel like that's all someone really have. And as we get into this time of year, it's starting to get harder, right? We got Thanksgiving coming, we got Christmas. These are the darkest times of the year for people who have, witnessed loss before in their lives. So the biggest thing that I would like to push out to YouTube, to everybody that's in the audience, is if you are going through that, please get nested with a group of people, whether it be coworkers, family, friends, neighborhood, community, whatever, gym people, whatever you do, but don't be alone.
I think how I would answer that, just going through so much loss myself. If you lose somebody that you love, the love doesn't go anywhere. It changes though, because they're no longer here. So I always tell people, like, lean into the grief rather than from it, because what we bury only gets heavier. So we need to visit it. We need to touch it. We don't have to spend all day in it. It's going to be there. So why not explore that and get a little curious about it and figure out what's going to help you keep that person alive. And that could be in your heart. It could be in your legacy, in your business, in your daily life. For me, losing my daughter, I am still the mother that I would want to be with her people. So that's what keeps me going. So when you think about that person that you lost, how do you keep them alive? How do you keep their legacy going?
I also recommend looking at grief support groups. There are a lot of grief support groups in the community. Get plugged in. I also recommend therapy. I think it's the best gift you can give yourself. It helps with the bereavement process, the process of loss. A therapist, I'm pretty sure she won't let me lie. They'll help you navigate the process so that you're not trying to figure it out on your own.
Thank you, guys, and thank you once again, for being here. I hope you guys successful this conversation. Thank you, Danielle, for hosting this, man. We can do it for 5-6 hours having this conversation. And we'll keep it going in the future, man. So thank you guys for being here. Let's give this panel a round of applause. This is making know that this is the beginning of the conversation. This is not the end of the conversation. But now that you guys have the tools that you need, you don't have them all, but you have some tools to be able to help those people that are standing next to you at all times. Be that person that is that person for someone else, right? Like I said in the beginning, we all need each other. And so I want to thank y'all for being here tonight, but don't let this be the last time you come to VGA. What we do here, and I learned this from Miguel, what we do here is suicide prevention. I didn't even realize it until he told me. He was playing on, I think it was the day that the Army beat the Navy in that football game.
I know it happened.
No, the Navy didn't beat the Army beat the Navy. It was that day. It was that day. It was that day when the Army beat the Navy. We had that football game in here, but he was like, look around, this is suicide prevention. And it blew my mind. I was like, I didn't think of it that way, because we've been having other conversations, right? About, you said that there are 3 stages: prevention, intervention, and postvention, right? Let's not get to postvention. Let's get to building community around each other. Get involved in the work that we do, because it will help you in so many different ways. be a resource for someone, and take care of yourself, most importantly, put your mask on first. I also want to thank my brother Jay for live streaming this on YouTube. Y'all don't know this, but Jay is a huge part of when we first came up with the idea of VGA. I spoke to him about it when it was an idea, and he's currently still serving in the Navy. He's still currently serving in the Navy, and I called him up the other day. I said, man, we need to get this live on YouTube. And he said, what time? I'll be there. He didn't ask me anything else. What time? I'll be there. And what do you need? And he even called me to follow up. And so you need people like that in your life, right? You need people that will have your back, won't ask any other question, but how can they help you? Right? Those are the two questions that I asked y'all to ask everybody else here. Is how can you help? And then come back here to help other people. So be a part of VGA, get a part of this prevention, be a part of moving forward. And there's some rules that you got to get past, but that's okay, right? We're human beings. We're gonna have things that go on in our life that is not so good. But thank y'all for being here tonight. I'm gonna ask y'all to do one thing. Every time we do one of these, we take a family picture. So I need everybody to come up front and take a family picture with our panel so we can commemorate this and we're gonna get out of here, all right?
Show people up front now.
Yes, there is a record.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You find, I can actually move it back and I can actually take a picture with the equipment. Yeah. On three. 1, 2, 3. VGA! 1, 2, 3.